Hey guys, it's Kim Bowen with The Marriage Place. I want to make an introduction. This is my husband of 28 years,
Hello?
John. um, wow, so this feels really vulnerable for us right now. I knew that I was going to be on camera and doing some things like Facebook, crazy stuff like Facebook Live, and then recording a video like this. But this poor guy,
I'm quaking in my boots.
had no idea that I was going to bring him in front of the camera until just a little bit ago. And he is so brave and is willing to come on here and talk to you. I've been on this journey of starting this counseling practice and focusing on marriages where it feels kind of hopeless, especially if one person wants out because of what happened in our marriage. And he has graciously allowed me to share that story, but he's been one person removed from it. So if I wrote about it or I talked about it, I had his approval and his encouragement to do that, but he's never had to get on a forum like this and actually show up himself. So, honey, I really am proud of you.
Well, thank
you. Are you nervous?
Mildly.
Mildly nervous?
Yes.
Okay, so when he gets nervous or tired, he gets chatty. So this could get really interesting.
Unless I get quiet.
And then this would be a disaster.
Yes, it would.
All right, so assuming that I can get him back on camera again, we're going to next week talk about our relationship and what happened to us, with us, and kind of give you guys some insight into the dynamic that played out for us. But tonight, what I wanted to do and what he has graciously agreed to join me on is kind of a follow-up to the Facebook Live. When we did that last week, we talked about people who choose to love versus people who make decisions, especially in the romance department, on feelings. And so I don't know that I don't know that I can do this with you. And so I thought it would be more interesting for you guys to hear from a feeler and a chooser instead of me talking about both. And so we got a lot of views on that live, Facebook Live, and we got a lot of comments of people who said, I'm a chooser, or I'm married to a feeler, or I'm a feeler married to a and wanted some ideas on how to work that dynamic. And frankly, we're pros at it now, right?
Oh, yes. Got it down pat.
I bet you're having a whole lot of feeling right now. Remember, you chose it.
I chose to be here.
You chose to be here. All right. So let's talk about, you want to talk about feelers first?
I'm game for whatever.
How did you know that you were married to a feeler? When did you first find out? When I tried to hit you with a car?
Well, no, probably I realized I was in a relationship with a feeler long before that. Maybe when you threatened to throw your engagement ring in a field.
I sure did. I was pretty pissed at you that night. I did. Do you remember what you said to me?
Honestly, I don't.
Oh, I remember what you said.
I probably said something like, you throw that and you'll not be getting another one.
That's exactly what you said. I had that ring ripped off and you grabbed my wrist and you got right in my face and you said, you throw that ring and I will never buy you another one. And I believed you. So I'm a feeler, but I ain't stupid. So yeah, so let's talk about feelers. Feelers are people who make decisions based on their emotional state. And choosers are people, this is a recap from Facebook Live. Choosers are people who make decisions based on their logical brain. Like they know what they want. They have a moral compass that's clearly in alignment at all times, and they make decisions based on what they value and what they really want and not what they want right now. And so I've often said the reason that you and I are still married is because you're the chooser. And you chose this marriage, even when I didn't. Right?
I would say that was an accurate statement.
You're trying to be really nice and careful. Go ahead and tell them I was a bitch. At times.
There were some roller coaster rides.
There were some roller coaster rides. There sure were. And so you might be a feeler if you find yourself, again, this is a recap, if you find yourself feeling lots of love and affection for your husband one day and just can't really stand the sight of him the next, and then right back at it. And where you can get in trouble is you start to fantasize about life without him, and you start to believe that you love him, but you're just not in love with him anymore, or her. There are men who are feelers. So what's it like to live with a feeler?
Sometimes it's very frustrating. It's there have been times where you have done and said things to me that were hurtful, but I had to say, I know this isn't really the way that she feels. This is.
Oh, but I did. Like, I really did feel that way.
But it's how you felt in the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't how, I mean, to me, there's this is how I feel right now, and this is the underlying theme. For example, if you at many times in our marriage, you didn't like me, you were mad at me, you didn't love me, that's how you felt. But if I had been in a car wreck and you had gotten a call during that period of time, you would have been at the hospital and you would have realized at that point that you really did love me. So to me, that's, I kept, a lot of the times I had to say, yes, she really does love me. She's not feeling it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably true. Although there probably was a time or two I wouldn't have come even at the hospital.
I seriously doubt that.
Let's hope we never find out. Let's hope we never find out. So it's tough being married to a feeler because it's a roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a feeler, you might be viewed as inconsistent or unstable, hard to make up your mind. You kind of go back and forth, vacillate a lot between decisions, which can be really frustrating for you as a feeler or for your partner who's married to a feeler. I mean, how many times was I like, we're getting a dog. No, we're not getting a dog. We're going to sell the house. No, I don't want to sell the house.
There was a lot of that.
A lot of that. So it's just, feelers are impulsive. And so that can be tough. That can be tough.
Yeah. And I tend to worry about a decision, make a decision. But once I make the decision, that's the way it's going to be. I'm not going to go back and say and revisit that.
But see, that's what attracts people like you to people like me, because the roller coaster is exhausting. And then here comes the steady sailor. He's just always the same, and he's reliable, and he's predictable, and he's safe. And I was really attracted to that. He's the yin to my yang, or whatever that is. But at the same time, later on, that gets boring, and it gets tedious, and it gets, it just feels like there's no passion. There's no spark. or flame, because all that steadiness just kind of loses its allure, right? You said something to me last week that I didn't know. In 28 years of marriage, I didn't know this. Do you know what it was?
I said that there were times in our marriage where I felt like, I'd be in whatever position we were not doing very well. Mm-hmm. And I would think, it's okay. I could walk away right now and I would be okay.
Yeah, like I was stunned to hear that.
And yeah, I had that feeling, I had that thought, but not too far after that came the thought, that's not really how you feel. You wouldn't really be okay. So
you need to kind of keep it to yourself, because it was like, why say something hurtful or something, on the spur of my tongue, the tip of my tongue? Why say something that I know I may not feel later?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my brain does not work that way. So when it comes here, it comes out of here. And that's not a good thing. And so one of the things that we kind of wanted to give you guys was some tips, kind of things we've learned in living with each other. Because while a chooser might seem like the better path, and in many times it is, it's also not a piece of cake to live with a chooser. Is that shocking?
No.
What do you think would be hard about living with a chooser? I'm really interested to see what he comes up with. We did not script this. This is live for us.
I'm thinking that because I tend to be a chooser and I choose, and once I've made a decision about something, I stick with it. That sometimes that's not, I don't necessarily re-examine things on the circumstances at the time. Maybe things changed.
Or I'd have a golden doodle right now.
No.
I'm going to get a golden doodle before this is done.
I'm sure you will.
Just remember that.
I'm going to stick my ground, but I'm pretty sure you will.
I forgot to silence my phone. Okay, I'm going to do that right now. See, this is live for us. We're not scripting. Still coming through on my computer. Oh, I'm sorry. And so the other thing that makes it kind of hard to be with a chooser is that sometimes you're detached. You're really detached from your emotions. And so it's like you think with your head and you, I don't get that emotional, touchy-feely connection. I don't get the juju, baby.
Well, it's what, like, our kids tell us, like, okay, you buy dad a Christmas present that he really likes. You find out he really likes it later, when he's, using it for its purpose. You don't find out he really likes it when he opens it up.
Yeah. But that's not to say that you don't, like, we're making it kind of sound like feelers are emotionally erratic or explosive and volatile. And personally, I can be, and several can be. But you can also, choosers can lose their cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You just don't often say a whole lot of hateful stuff in anger. But you might get.
Yeah.
You might get riled up pretty good.
I can get riled up. It's not that I don't have, I'm just calm and never have emotion. Mm-hmm. I'm not just so silent spoken. You never hear me when I'm saying. I have on many, many occasions on my stack.
Yes, I was an abused wife.
But I'm a lot less likely to, even when I'm upset, I'm still more likely to think about what I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not go with your first feeling. And so, yeah. And once I started the negative spiral, like, it just took on life of its own. But we can talk more about that when we're talking about our actual relationship. Let's help them with feeling and choosing.
So what's it like? Tell me the downsides of
The detached, the two, sometimes I feel like I'm married to Dr. Spock.
you mean Mr. Spock.
Okay, Mr. Spock. Yeah, the fact that you know that's kind of scary. And then
I'm an engineer.
you're an engineer, I know. So there's that, and then there's like I said, sometimes I just don't feel the love and passion coming from you that I want to feel. It's there. I mean, I know you, I know your heart, I know it's there, but you're just not very emoting sometimes, often, most of the time. So that can be a challenge. So if you're the feeler, there's a couple things I've learned that will help you navigate this. And oh, I forgot to mention this. I think I said this on Facebook Live too, but the reason this is important is because most people want a marriage like what you and I have today. Most people want that kind of marriage where, you know, we're together. We're 28 years. You guys, this last week is the first new experience for us as empty nesters. Our two boys are now off to college, and we are batching it together. And so this is what we've worked our whole lives to get to this point. And it's pretty fabulous. I mean, it's scary, and some days it's okay. You're the cry. You cry.
I do. I cried.
You miss the boys and you cry. I cried too. So there, I guess you actually had showed some emotion with that.
It's not that I don't show emotion.
No, it's not. It's not that you don't. But sometimes it's not the ones I need. And so anyway, we're empty nesting, and we have this really great marriage. We're in this really great place. And that doesn't mean we have a perfect, I mean, gosh, we could tell them about the last knockdown drag out. That would be probably not very pretty. Let's don't do that. Okay. And so, but this is the kind of marriage that the relationship most people say they want. I mean, I get people come in my office all the time, and they just think they got the wrong guy or they got the wrong girl. And if they had the right one, they could have this. And I'm like, yeah, well, this took a whole lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of sweat and blood and tears. I mean, it just did.
It did.
And therapy. Took a lot of therapy. So again, I always have to say this. I'm not talking about a relationship where there is emotional, physical abuse or violence or addiction or, I mean, we're not talking about those kind of extreme situations. We're just talking about people who are in a relationship where it's just lost the spark, or you just feel like it's not the right person. It drives me crazy when I read blog posts about people who say things like, don't judge me for getting a divorce because I needed to be my best self and I couldn't be with this person. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to judge you for getting a divorce, but you got to decide what it is you want. And if you want that kind of relationship where it's deep and it is good and it is precious, you got to get through the bad stuff. You've got to work through the bad stuff. And that bad stuff can last years, right?
Yeah, it can
last years. And so if you don't give up and you get the right help and you learn how to do this thing called marriage, it can be pretty terrific. But if you are into the feeling part of it and it's got to feel good all the time and you think marriage can't be hard, it needs to be easy, which that drives me crazy too. When people say that, you're going to be in a revolving door in relationships. And so you can't have them both. So, if you're interested in learning how to do it this way, then I think we can help you. That's why it's relevant. Otherwise, turn the channel because you probably won't like what you're going to hear. So when I am getting pretty emotional about my feelings, like I mean, honey, I don't think this is a surprise to you 28 years later, and I still sometimes wake up and think, ugh, what'd I do? I'm stuck. I'm trapped. Does that surprise you?
Not in the least.
Not in the least. It just doesn't scare you anymore, does it?
No, it doesn't.
I mean, it doesn't feel great.
It doesn't feel good. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I'm not to the point where, oh my goodness, is she going to leave? Is she going to, I realize that, this is something that you're going through. And many times I have played my part in getting you there.
Oh, that was sweet of you to say.
But it's one of those things that you have to look at and say, I want to work through this. I want to figure out what it is that, I want to figure out what's my part, and take responsibility for that, and let her figure out what's her part, and let her take responsibility for that, and just and work it out. So
that's one of the things I wanted to tell you guys is like feelings come and go. So don't get too tied up in what it is you're feeling. I use the example a lot, like your kids, for instance. I don't know about you, but I have 2 teenage boys, and sometimes they're real knuckleheads. And they do things that make me just want to kill them. But I don't think, boy, I love my kids, but I just don't want to be their mom anymore. Well, maybe sometimes I do think that. Sometimes I do want to run away. But I would never divorce my kids. Right? And so why in the world would I divorce the father of my kids? I mean, when we got married, we created a family. You just don't divorce that when it doesn't feel all the things that I think a marriage ought to feel like.
I think in our society, we have been sold a bill of goods that if you are in love, that you will, for now and forevermore, feel that feeling that you feel when you first meet somebody and you're infatuated with them. Mm-hmm. We have been sold the bill of goods that infatuation is love. And if you lose that feeling, or if it doesn't come often enough, that you're not really in love and that person's not the right person for you.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But the worst thing for a feeler, I got to tell you, it's not feeling, I mean, sometimes I feel strong feelings of hostility or dislike. I mean, John, gosh, even hatred. I've even felt like I just hated you. But worse than all that, and that's pretty scary. That's scary for the feeler too. And it often comes out really like anger and contempt for your spouse. But the scariest feeling for a feeler is not to feel anything. I don't feel love, and I don't feel hate. I just don't feel anything for you. That's the scariest feeling. And that's when you start to feel like the relationship's dead or it's dying. So
that's pretty scary from my end too. When I realized that's happening, that's pretty scary.
Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like you didn't feel anything? Like when you said I could walk away and be okay, what were you feeling?
I wasn't feeling nothing. I was
feeling kind of exasperated. I'm sure I wore you out.
Sometimes it was just exhausting.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure I wore you out.
So that was some of it.
Because that's, it's the roller coaster. And you've said many times, I'm so glad I don't live in your brain.
Yeah. And, to what I was saying a while ago about, our being sold a bill of goods, when you're told that this is how you're supposed to feel and you're a feeler, then that's what you're looking for.
Right. So if you're a feeler, one of the things that you can do to kind of manage your emotions is, one, realize they're feelings and that they come and go. And even if they're there for a season, that doesn't mean that that's how it's always going to be. What you feel now is how you're always going to feel. I tell clients a lot about an example of when I married you, the day I married you, I felt like you were my best friend. And if somebody had told me that day that there would come a time when I wanted to divorce you, I wouldn't have believed it. But that happened. And so the day that I told you I wanted a divorce, if anybody had told me there'll come a day when you love that man more than the day you married him, I wouldn't have believed that either. Because I was done. But I did. It didn't happen instantly. I mean, we'll talk more about it later, but I detached over time, and it took a long time for those feelings to return, but they did, and they can. So I think that's important to remember. So I tell clients a lot, when you're feeling overwhelmed by your emotions, just to kind of close your eyes and imagine you're sitting in a surf in the ocean, and you know how the water comes up and kind of comes over you. And if you just sit there and not fight against it and know that you're not going to drown, you're not going to get carried away, and you just let the water come right back out again. That's like really overwhelming feelings. Don't fight them. Don't resist them. Don't judge them. Just let them come, ride the wave, and let them go out again. That helps kind of keep you emotionally regulated as you're dealing with all of this. The other thing that was helpful for me was to get a sanity check by people who were either marriage friendly, they knew us, they loved us, not me or you or taking sides or anything like that, but they loved us, and they loved me enough to tell me the truth. Like, you're being a brat, you're being selfish. Oh my gosh, what are you thinking? You're just going to throw all this away because, you're not feeling it or whatever. So that was important to find somebody to do a sanity check with. But the biggest thing that I think was helpful for me is, for some reason, at some point, I was more willing to look inside than outside. It's a lot safer and easier to be upset at you and get behind this wall of self-protection and defensiveness and hurt and say, we would be great. I would be happy if you would just change this, 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 and this. And that keeps you stuck. And so it wasn't until I was able to look inside and see what I was contributing to this situation. And I did not like what I saw. I saw somebody who was immature and impulsive, demanding, too critical, way too critical and judgmental. I'd gone in that one-up position and felt like I was superior in a lot of ways. It was ugly. And when I got that picture of me, I felt so grateful that you would love me anyway. I did. I went from feeling like you are such a jerk and you're never going to get it, and you're never going to be the man I need you to be. You're never going to be the man I need you to be. And be so hurt and angry by that. To being grateful to you for putting up with me.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you think of that? I put you on the spot right here on camera.
The thing that I've always loved about you is that in most respects, you have been able to look at yourself. There are some times that you have struggled with certain aspects of that, but there have been a lot of times where we have had arguments or disagreements or whatever, and you've come back later and said, I thought about that, and you had a point, and that is huge to me. It's and part of that is because you can talk circles around me.
No, most women can, men though.
And so I feel like, I felt like when it was happening, it was like, I can't make a point here. I don't, it makes it seem like I don't have a point, but I really do. And when you could come back and say, yeah, you had a point, that really meant a lot.
Mm. What tips do you have for a chooser that's in a relationship?
With the feeling?
Mm-hmm.
I guess the first one would be when they are in an emotional state that is not a good one. to get some perspective on it, because it's really it. I mean, she's talked about being the emotions being contagious.
Who's she?
You.
Okay, me. I've talked about that.
You've talked about how these emotions can become contagious.
Yeah.
And so if you get wrapped up in that, it just escalates it and makes it worse.
Right. So you're saying, hey, hold on to yourself and not let it escalate with you too, and not buy into the panic and the fear and the anger, right. Especially the anger.
Because especially when we were first married and dating, when those emotions would hit you, I took the roller coaster ride and I did feel panicked.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I think things got worse than they needed to be because of that.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that's probably the first thing I would say. You alluded to this, and I would say don't ever say, you'll get over this.
Yeah, don't diminish or minimize my feelings. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And don't avoid me. Don't lay low and avoid me and hope the whole thing blows over.
That's been that was my pattern for many, many years.
I do know this.
It was like, okay, I know it's going to blow over if I just stay away, and do my thing. It will get better.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
And
you still do that sometimes.
It's an old habit. Old habits die hard.
Coward. Get in there. Handle it.
But don't minimize their feelings, and don't shell up.
I think one of the don't shell up, whatever that means.
Don't be a turtle.
Don't turtle, yeah. Don't be a turtle.
Don't
You
withdraw.
get that on a t-shirt, don't be a turtle. I love that. But one of the things that you did learn to do that was really helpful is when you're able to be calm, but you want to you're helping stay connected. And so you'll look at me and you'll say, what do you need? What do you need right now to feel better about where we are, or what you're thinking, or what you're going through? What do you need from me? And that's so much better than, and oftentimes I won't know. Sometimes I'm like, get lost. I don't know I don't need you. I don't need you. I don't need anything from you. But that's a loving response. So that was helpful.
Sometimes this can sound like I'm saying, do go shell up in your hole. But sometimes it's giving space.
Mm-hmm. But that
does not necessarily mean avoiding. But it's there's a difference between avoiding somebody and giving them space.
Yeah.
Avoiding them is, you walk around, they're in one room and you walk halfway around the house in order to go into another room so you don't have to walk in the same room as them.
Yeah.
I
want to talk about choosers now.
Giving the space just means going through the room.
Don't y'all want to hear about choosers now? I want to hear about choosers.
Okay.
Tell me about you. So tell me, what about being a chooser adds to the difficulty in a relationship with a feeler? You said once that I said that you were kind of cold and detached sometimes. It felt that way. What else makes it tough?
Because I am a chooser, and make decision things. I sometimes get exasperated with the fact that you want to re-examine everything.
You sometimes get exasperated?
Okay, I get exasperated a lot with the fact that you want to re-examine things.
I do. It really bothers me that you're stuck sometimes in that whatever decision you've made.
Yeah, sometimes being a chooser, you say, okay, I've made the decision, this is what I want, and you just say you don't allow for changes in life and changes in whatever, and reevaluating that maybe that was the right choice then.
Sometimes, you know, it's really frustrating. Sometimes a chooser feels like being married to Jesus. I know, but it does. It's like I know you're not Jesus. You're absolutely not Jesus, but you are. I mean, it's feelers, you know, I can look impulsive and immature or whatever, and you're just steady. And that's really annoying. It feels great and it's safe, but it's also really annoying.
So,
so how do you fix it?
how do I fix that?
I don't know. I don't know that you do. I think I'm just stuck with Jesus. No, you're not. All right, so let's give them tips. If a feeler's married to a chooser, how can they do you think choosers want to go to therapy?
Probably not.
Feel like you can fix it on your own?
Yeah, because it's sort of the nature of the beast. If you make the right choices, then we can make
And
this
you just
work.
have to wait out her or his bad.
Yeah, you just have to
mood.
wait it out, make the right choices, and fix it. And
So now you would tell a chooser to go to therapy?
I would, because
And what kind of therapy would you tell them to get? Don't say how much he's listened.
The therapy that did me the most good was when we had a therapist who was willing to look at my stuff and confront me on my stuff, ask me why I had certain behaviors and what I was getting out of that, what made it work for me.
I love the day the therapist looked at you and said, "You're not that nice a guy that you always think you are."
Yeah.
I loved that.
So,
because I look like the crazy mean one all the time.
But you need to find a therapist that, well, at least for me, I needed to find a therapist who would look at me and say, here's your behaviors. Here's what you're getting out of it. Or ask me what I was getting out of it. So I had to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically get me to walk around and look and see what that really looked like.
Right.
And
I made some notes. I was trying to see if we've covered everything that I wanted us to cover. Talked about not minimizing the feelers, emotions and feelings, and leaning in, not running from the anger and all the emotions, because it can be overwhelming. I think people who are more choosers have that brain oftentimes are overwhelmed by strong emotions.
yeah, I mean, it's a balancing act, because you can't go, like we said, you don't want to catch the emotion and be, and escalate, but you also don't want to minimize the emotion and say, oh, it's not really there.
Right.
So you have to, it's a balancing act.
Yeah. Okay, guys, that's it. That's all I got. Have you got anything else you want to add?
Not that I can think of.
You are such a champ. Thank you for doing this. You're awesome. All right, guys. So listen, make comments. Let us know if this was helpful. If we answered your questions, you can ask other questions. I may cover them in a Facebook Live if I ever do it again. I think I ate a whole bag of Oreos after the last one. Kind of stressed me out. This one was much better. It was easier with a partner, so thanks for that. And then hopefully we'll be back in a week or so and talk to you about our relationship and see if we can kind of shed some light on how we got where we got to and how we got out of where we got. So anyway, that's all I've got. You too. So we're going to say good night.
Good night.
And we're going to go binge watch. All right, guys. Bye.